Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie, and today I'm so excited to share the long-awaited collab between Nail Daddy and Tyler's Trinkets. If you somehow don't know Nail Daddy or Nick, he is most known for his super entertaining videos, but maybe more recognizable for his massive arms and his iconic cowboy hat. So naturally, this collection is very cowboy, western inspired, and it's called the Golden Hour Rodeo. I don't think I mentioned that yet, but like I did mention, I am very excited to share these with you all. So I will save more of my thoughts for these, including any information on availability for the end of the video after some comparisons and even recreation attempts. But for now, let's just get into the swatches.
First up, we have Ghost Town, which is a warm, white crelly base with gold metallic micro flakies, large particle gold shimmer, and a touch of scattered silver reflective micro glitter. This one has a flawless, buttery smooth formula. It just glided on my nails and self-leveled so evenly. I was genuinely impressed by how nice it looked on the first coat. Obviously, it's very sheer, but I don't know, I think you can totally lean into the ghostly vibes with the name if you wanted, but of course I will be building this up in 2 and also 3 coats. In 2 coats as seen here, I feel like the coverage looks really nice. It again is still pretty sheer because it is a white crelly base, but it's one of those that looks good no matter how many coats you do. Of course you are going to get a little bit more coverage and obscurity of your visible nail line if you do a 3rd coat, or of course if you use a blurring base coat. And as far as the finish goes, I mean, I love a cute white crelly. I love gold glitters and shimmers, so I knew I was gonna love this one. You know I also love reflective glitter, but it was definitely pretty hard to make them out in this shade. It's a very subtle detail where you just see a little twinkle and sparkle under very specific lighting. So for the most part, I would say that you don't really notice them too much. So if you don't like reflective glitters, I don't think you have to worry about that with this shade. Next up is Boots with the Spurs, which, let me just say, all the names in this collection are perfection. This is probably my 2nd favorite, but it's described as a rich brown mica base with large particle gold shimmer. This had another super smooth, highly pigmented formula that just applied itself. Even though this is a shimmer, I feel like the mica base gives it an almost metallic kind of look without it being super streaky or pearlescent. It was nearly opaque on the first coat, but I think the 2nd coat really deepens that rich brown color. At first it was giving a milk chocolate kind of vibe, but I feel like the combination of the gold shimmer for some reason reminds me of peanut butter or maybe caramel or something. I don't know how to explain it, but it just feels so decadent. Up next we have Midnight Ride, which is a black crelly filled with gold reflective glitters. So even though this is described as a crelly, I would say that the formula feels very fluid like a jelly, but obviously not nearly as sheer. It provided great coverage on the first coat alone and was basically opaque for me in 2 coats. Though since my nails are a little longer, I could kind of see the light coming through my tips, but obviously that's very dependent on a specific lighting situation, I guess. In every other lighting, it just looks like a glossy black with a beautiful gold twinkle. This is definitely packed with reflective glitters, which you'll see more under flash, so you will want to use a glitter grabber or 2 layers of top coat to smooth things out, and probably a peel off base coat. But I would say in normal lighting, the glitters look more understated, where they almost get lost in the black base because it's so pigmented, but they have this really beautiful, dainty little twinkle. I'm just personally a fan of it, so if you're not a big fan of super densely packed reflective glitters, I think this might be a good in-between option, especially if you don't want something as subtle as the reflectives in Ghost Town, for example. The magnetic in the collection is called Blood Moon Outlaw, which is described as a black and red base with a gold copper metallic magnetic pigment. This was incredibly pigmented on the first coat, which I find is often true for metallics, and while it has a slightly thicker formula, I still found that it magnetized pretty easily. So if your nails are shorter than mine, you might be able to wear this in one coat, especially if you want more of that blood red base coming through, but I did build it up in 2 coats for full opacity, and I think it deepened the base just a little bit more. I love a vampy red, and this one is just so gorgeous. The copper shimmer in this gives such a warm and fiery glow. You know I always love magnetics in the velvet effect, but I think this one was especially beautiful with the cat eye because it just immediately reminded me of a red tiger's eye. Oh, I just loved it so much. I do also want to mention there is a note from the brand for this shade and the next one that due to their very pigmented deep red bases, you might experience some staining, which I feel like just tends to happen with a lot of super pigmented polishes. I wasn't wearing this shade for that long, so I didn't experience anything, but I just wanted to let you know. The last polish in the collection is Rhinestone Cowboy, which is a deep red base with a red to black to copper multichrome pigment and gold metallic microflakes. Ugh, this is another flawless shade, impeccable formula and coverage, which shouldn't be a surprise at this point. But yeah, this combo of the red base with the gold flakies is just chef's kiss. The only kind of downside, if you could call it that, is that I didn't really notice that multichrome shimmer in here. It was most noticeable in the bottle, but specifically under lower lighting. Once I saw the shift there, I was like, oh, that looks so beautiful, and it's a shame it didn't really translate well on the nail. I'm assuming it's because the base is just so incredibly pigmented, so maybe it just gets lost in there. I don't know, maybe it could just be my eyes playing tricks on me, but either way, I still really love this shade. It is just so vampy, so alluring, and I love those flakies so much. And hopefully you can see here the multichrome shimmer in the bottle. And last but certainly not least, dare I say even the best for last, is Gold in Them There Hills, which is the topper of the collection, packed with gold shimmer, gold metallic flakies, and a red to orange to gold to green shifting microflake. I would argue this one has the best name in the collection, at least it's my favorite, and if you know me and my taste, you know I love a gold shimmer and a gold metallic flaky, so having them both combined in this polish is just so stunning. And you know too that I don't always love a multi-chrome flake, but I appreciate how teeny tiny these were, and especially that they were in the warmer colors. I know they technically are supposed to shift to gold and green, but honestly I didn't really see the green at all. I predominantly just saw the red orange kind of color, which again I really love and think it works so well for this polish. So even though this is a topper, I did want to show it built up on its own in 3 coats because I just loved how it looked in the bottle. But here it is also layered in 1 coat over black and white and over 2 of the shades from the collection. I obviously think it's a perfect topper paired with these cozy shades, but I don't know, I personally really loved it the most just on its own or over a sheer pink. It's just so dainty and glam. I feel like it's going to be so perfect for the fall season. I also think I would just love this over a plain brown cream too. And here are my full hand swatches of the Golden Hour Rodeo collection. Sorry I didn't have direct sun for these, but with the gloomy fall weather around the corner, I feel like these still shine and sparkle so much. Moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Ghost Town, and I immediately thought of ILNP's Afterlight, which is kind of a white crelly with gold flakies, but as I'm sure you can tell, it is a little bit warmer, almost a peachy oatmeal kind of base color as opposed to the white of Ghost Town. And so for reference, here it is next to a pure white, so I'm using ILNP's canvas. Ghost Town does have a little bit of warmth to the base, almost like an ivory or cream kind of color, color, which I do think is so flattering, but I still wanted to try to recreate Ghost Town, so I started with 2 coats of Cracked Polish's Vanille, which is a milky white jelly, followed by 1 coat of each of these toppers, since they're basically the same kind of pigments as in Ghost Town. Though it didn't yield the same exact result, maybe I needed another coat of Vanille. Moving on to Boots with the Spurs, I knew I had to show this next to Mooncat's Dark Horse, which is a rich brown, multi-chrome, metallic kind of shade. So the shimmer in that one is much more finely milled and densely packed compared to Boots with the Spurs, but even color-wise they're very different since Mooncat leans more red than gold. So since Boots has a pretty simple shimmer kind of finish, I thought I could try to recreate it by layering Cirque Nectar over a milk chocolate brown. So I was using ILNP's Chocolate as my base. It's kind of close in tone, but it's just a couple of shades lighter, I would say. And while I love Nectar as a topper, it unfortunately is a little lacking compared to Boots. Moving on to Midnight Ride, I knew I had to show this next to KBShimmer's After Midnight, which is the only other black reflective polish that I have in my collection, though as I'm sure you can tell, they are not dupes since the reflective shimmer in KBShimmer is silver as opposed to gold, and the base I would say actually leans a little bit more gray compared to Midnight Ride, which just has that much darker, inkier black color. The KB also has a thicker formula, probably because it has more reflective glitters. Next for Blood Moon Outlaw, I wanted to show this next to a couple of Mooncat shades, which I thought were similar even though they aren't magnetics. The first being Dark Horse, which I had pulled out before, being that rich brown. I feel like the gold coppery kind of shimmer in Blood Moon just made it lean a little bit brown in the bottle, but because it has a red base, it leans a little bit closer to the Arsonist. And for some other comparisons, here is ILNP's Poison, which is a magnetic, but I will be showing it unmagnetized really quickly because I also wanted to see it next to Lurid's On the Prowl, which was a previous PPU shade. That one's another deep red kind of base with a super intense golden coppery shimmer, but because it's a jelly, it is a little bit lighter and brighter than Blood Moon and Poison, for example, but the shimmer definitely makes it look a little bit more similar. And here are Poison and Blood Moon Outlaw magnetized with the cat eye effect, so even though they are both reds, you can tell that Poison is still a red while Blood Moon is very, very dark, like a blackened red. Next for Rhinestone Cowboy, I was immediately reminded of these 2 shades from my collection. The first was Painted Polish's Live Laugh Lava, which was another previous PPU shade. It's another deep red base filled with gold metallic flakies, but the flakies are much smaller in Painted Polish, and the red I think is a little bit more noticeable. Rhinestone Cowboy almost has a super deep, almost brown red color, which is why it reminded me of Shapeshifter, which is a very dark brown with a strong red undertone. Technically, the only thing missing from Shapeshifter is that multi-chrome shimmer, which again, I don't really think is super noticeable in Rhinestone Cowboy. And for reference, here's Rhinestone Cowboy next to a couple of Holo Taco shades that I thought were kind of close, only to realize they are not. The first is Feeling Sparks, which is the magnetic from the recent camping collection. That just has a much brighter red base, and I'm Rover is also a much more red-orange kind of color. If anything, I would say it's maybe a little closer color-wise to Orbite Me, which is a very deep, almost oxblood red, but obviously the finish is wildly different. And lastly, for Gold in Them There Hills, I knew I wanted to show this next to Cirque Nectar since I'm convinced they have the same exact large particle gold shimmer. So I'm using that as my base to try to recreate this shade by also layering Holo Taco's Fallen Flake Taco, which is the multi-chrome flaky in my collection. And I would say this looks really close. Technically though, there are more color shifts in Fallen Flake.
So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for the Golden Hour Rodeo collab by Nail Daddy and Tyler's Trinkets. As always, I would love to know your thoughts on this release because obviously I am really, really loving them. And I promise I am not being biased because I love Nick and I'm a big fan of his channel and his content. I just genuinely was so blown away and impressed by these. For anyone who watches both of us, you probably have recognized that we often have a lot of opposing opinions on the same collections where we just have totally different favorites. And you know, that's obviously totally normal, it happens, but it's just always entertaining to see, you know, which ones are our favorites and least favorites. And so yeah, I was just genuinely so happy and impressed with these polishes. Even though the cowboy western aesthetic isn't, you know, totally my thing, I don't think you need to be a fan of that necessarily to enjoy these rich browns and reds with pops of gold, especially with fall just right around the corner. I feel like this is such a perfect lineup. I was also really excited to just try more of Tyler's Trinkets because I have shared a couple of their polishes in previous favorites videos before, and I was really impressed and very happy with them. So it was just really nice to see that even with a wide range or variety of finishes, they all just performed so beautifully. If you're interested in buying these, they are going to be launching on Saturday, August 30th at 12 noon Eastern time. These are going to be retailing for $13 each and come in 11 milliliter sized bottles, which I do want to address really quickly because I know that I have kind of talked down on itty bitty bottle sizes before, but in this case I feel like I am very forgiving just because of how incredibly pigmented these polishes are, whereas a lot of other brands that offer the 11 milliliter size bottles usually have sheerer polishes, and you know, in this economy I just really value getting the most bang for your buck. You could also grab these as a set for $75, and oh my god, I almost forgot to mention that if you grab the set, they come in this little like canvas bag. It's super cute. I don't know the exact size of it, but it's a little black canvas bag with 3 of the bottles and the Golden Hour Rodeo collection on the front. So these will be limited edition while supplies last. There is also a surprise gift with purchase that comes with the full collection. I unfortunately am just not allowed to share any other information about it. They really want to keep it a surprise for people, so I don't even think I can post it until like mid-September. So just know that that is an option as well, and I believe it is going to be available as a full-size bottle if you are interested in actually buying it. I'll have Tyler's Trinkets website linked in the description box if you're interested in picking anything up. But even if you don't, I would love to hear your thoughts down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!